Well, I want to thank you all for coming first. I know there's lots of session choices here at Next. But here, you're going to hear about Chrome and managing Chrome browser updates for your enterprise. And let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Jeff Jagoda. I'm a Chrome solution specialist, and I work with a lot of enterprise customers and some folks here in the room that I recognize. I've been in IT for 17 years, IT administration, cloud transformation, cloud architect. And I've been in all your seats having to manage updates in the enterprise and how critical it is to the business and our users and security. And I hope that you guys are going to find this talk insightful and you'll get a lot of great information out of it. So let me just kick off here about probably why you're here, right, is that the browser is becoming that front door in your organization. Research finds that 1 out of 4 workers, users in your environment are a cloud worker. And so, like, what does that mean? Cloud worker is using a browser for their primary application of choice. They're accessing SaaS applications, they're accessing cloud applications, and all this is through a browser. They're getting away from traditional applications that they may be using in their environment. And we're finding, too, in enterprises that 81% of enterprises are going with cloud-first services approach, right, for replacing and adding new applications in their environment. And they're prioritizing cloud for new business apps for their business, and then they're all being accessed through a browser. And so then why is the browser becoming so important? Why are we here, right? Because this is a way that traditional security and things find compromise in the environment. And the way that security is looking at the browser and how exploits are being delivered in the environment are changing. So, you know, kind of gone are the days of the threat-based attack, you know, file-based attack, and now it's these unknown threats, ransomware, phishing, and some of the things you guys have probably heard about. And 73% of IT professionals are saying it's becoming more difficult to effectively manage their endpoints and the risks that it imposes into their environments. And that's why, again, Chrome updates become such a critical part of that. And it is a balancing act. I think as IT professionals, right, we're always balancing security. It seems like even if we're not on the security team, we're working for the security team in some capacity. And what that means in terms of locking down and preventing users and preventing that experience where they could fall into an area where as IT we're not comfortable with. And as IT professionals, you know, that 73% we consider the employee experience at top priority, and that's kind of what our business partners expect from us. So about automatic updates and about why, you know, Chrome is a browser for your enterprise. It's really no secret why Chrome browser in your enterprise has grown so dramatically, whether it's the security features, the management policies that we're actually going to be discussing here a little bit later, a little bit more technically about it, and also the productivity of the browser. Our users, even in their own personal lives, are using Chrome, so it's no surprise that our business users, our executives are using Chrome in their environment as well. And then Chrome provides those fast-paced updates that Google security, that Google brand behind it, and our engineering team that makes sure that Chrome is the most secure browser for your environment. It's going to be hard for me to see the way you guys are and with the lighting, but I wanted to ask, by show of hands, how many folks here have Chrome installed on their Windows computers in their enterprise? Very cool. I see lots of hands. How about on their Mac environments for folks with Macs? Okay. Do we have any? I'll ask Linux. Usually not as many. We got a few. How many companies are using Chrome as their default browser? Wow, good job, guys. Makes me feel proud. all the hard work pays off, right? Okay, and then the last one. How many use auto update? Okay, they're a little more split. A little more split, and we're going to talk about that split. How many would like to use auto update? All right, we'll talk about that too. So, again, there's a lot of benefits of auto updates. The main advantage I think that we all get is those security updates. When we're hearing about Spectre, when we're hearing about Meltdown, site isolation, some of these key components, that's why folks want updates, because they know if they don't keep their computers up to date, they're either falling out of compliance for regulatory needs, or then they're falling out of graces with their own security teams because then they have users running around with non-secure devices. Auto updates are great because it eliminates the need for manual patching. I can't tell you how many job roles and titles I've had where like you become the patch guy and you're waiting on patch cycles and delivering them to machines. Auto updates, IT's not worrying about that anymore. Set it and forget it. But it does take work to do that. It keeps your users on the same version of Chrome, so everyone's getting the same user experience. It's seamless to users. The Chrome updates are great. You don't have to restart your computer. You just restart Chrome. And users, again, get that optimal experience being on the latest, greatest version of Chrome. So this is where we're going to start getting a little more technical here about how to stay on this auto update continuum of Chrome and kind of where I see customers in the field and where they are. So folks are either on the auto updated, the current version, or they tend to lag behind. And Google understands that not all enterprises can be in the position to keep pace of how quickly Google innovates and rolls out updates. And some of these are some of the common themes that I see in organizations about application compatibility, testing requirements, integrating Chrome into your current change management and release management cycles, having security be involved in it, and any other regulatory requirements you may have in your organization about how you can and can't push updates for certain environments. And so finally, there's a lot of things to consider, and we're going to cover here in the talk about maintaining on latest, greatest updates, and then what we'll deliver and what we're going to cover for other options that organizations can choose to do. And then we're going to discuss beta channel here as well. So I believe yesterday was Chrome 68 was released. So for folks that are on auto updates, nothing to worry about. For those other folks, we're going to talk about the Chrome release schedule. So every 6 weeks is a release of Chrome, or roughly every 6 weeks. And that is the new stable version of Chrome. And the weeks leading up to that have been the beta version of Chrome. So leading up to the release of 68 yesterday, is beta had been in 68 for about 5 weeks. And that's where you as an organization, your application owners have that opportunity to do testing of what you're gonna see in Chrome before it actually hits production. And so how you do that is through Chrome release channels. So we're all familiar with stable. That's what we're all running on our home computers and probably running in our organizations. But Google offers other release channels called Canary, Dev, and Beta. And in this talk, we're going to talk about putting users on beta channel. This is the early release of Chrome so they can get ahead of what's going to change in Chrome. And this is usually in these talks we talk about IT using beta, but I'd encourage you, and we're going to talk about other slides about empowering the business to use it as well. So then here's a little more breakdown of the update cycles of Chrome. So like we mentioned is Chrome becomes stable yesterday for 68, and about a week from now, beta will hit 69. And so that's your first opportunity as an organization to have beta channel out to your enterprise users, application owners, and they can test early and often about what will change in their environment. And if you have development shops in your organization, I'd also recommend that the development community is on beta and dev channel as well, so they can get ahead for their development cycles. And as well, you can also apply auto updates for beta stable in these other channels as well. So then for folks where you've deployed beta, you can make sure they're on auto updates as well. I wanted to mention too, we talked about too, it's at Google, we call it the dog food way, right? So we empower our users to test Chrome before it hits the internet. So it's in organizations moving to where we're a traditional company and moving to where it's a software company, and it's really behooves you as the IT admins, the IT owners, security folks to empower the users to be part of that journey as well. So let's talk about how the auto updates actually roll out once, for instance, yesterday, the new version of Chrome came out. And we may see folks out there that have, their Windows computer may not have received the update yet. So at about the branch point when stable is now cut to, or when it becomes stable, that version becomes stable, there is different deployment cycles for each of the operating systems and desktops out there. So let's talk about desktop first. Desktop consists of the main platforms, including Windows, Mac, and Linux. Linux is ramped to 100%, but the other platforms, including Mac and Windows, kind of follow a staged rollout approach. And part of this is back at Google, making sure there's no problems with the update, and also, too, just imagine the billions of computers hitting Google update servers trying to update on day one. So this is kind of a technical piece and a QA piece for Google. And you can see as well, there's release cycles here for Android and iOS as well. for their cycles as well. So I wanted to give a couple of resources here, and when this is published, you guys can get the links, but I'll give you so you can easily Google things. So the first one is the builds, and if you guys Google Omaha proxy, this will give you this little tabular view of all the builds of Chrome when they're available and links to download them and the dates that they were released and the versions that they were released for. The next is the policy definitions, and I'm going to be doing a little demo here, and we're going to be talking about a few policies related to the updates. Chrome has over 300 management policies, some that we're going to talk about for updates, but many others. So if you're not familiar with that, go ahead and check out, if you just Google Chrome Enterprise Policies, that's how you'll get that. The Chrome Enterprise Release Notes, which I find so helpful with working with a lot of enterprise customers. This is, I would say, an IT administrator's goldmine of what's coming out in Chrome and what is upcoming in Chrome as well. And it's human readable by IT admins and security folks. So it's really a great resource. And then finally is the Help Center article about how to manage updates, what we're going to be talking about here. So let's talk about the different options that we see folks use for managing their Chrome browser updates. So the first one is keeping on auto updates using policy that I'm going to show you to force users and their computers to remain up to date on Chrome. The other is disabling automatic updates, and you as an organization using your own software deployment methods of maybe how you deployed Chrome and repackaging current versions and deploying that out on your own release cycles and manually modifying GPO in order to do that. Our final is disabling automatic updates, not recommended, but it does happen in certain cases where, as an organization, you'll stop auto updates or for a certain user segment. And then finally is the mixed approach, is using a combination of all these three to best manage your organization. So got a few little videos here to show you guys. So the first one here, and there, let me pause it. I want to just introduce the videos. I'm showing you 3 videos here. So one is how to get these auto updates and how to download them. The second video I'm going to show you is about installing and configuring the GPOs on your Active Directory computers. And the third video is just going to be showing how the client receives that updated policy. So I'll bring my mouse back over here. Let me full screen this. So if you guys Google Chrome Enterprise, it'll bring you here to our site. And what I'm browsing here for all the download areas, and you can see here at the bottom is where you can download the Chrome auto updates. And this is a GPO template that you'll download that you can apply to your AD server. This is the Help Center article that I showed previously or just alluded to that talks about the various policies for our auto updates. And I'll be showing you in the configuration video as well. And then finally, for my script kiddies out there, if you head to Jeff EJ on GitHub, I created a little PowerShell script that you can run on your AD server. And all this is, guys, is some wgets to download the zip files, expand them, and put them into the proper folders of your Windows servers. So you don't have to do it manually, since I've done this so many times. Just put a script out there. And so for our next video, hold on here, I'm just going to go over quickly about how to install them on your AD server and then how to configure the template. So here I'm showing you guys the manual method. So you would download that update template like we did off the Chrome Enterprise browser site, and you're going to get these ADMX files, and these are the group policy object files you're going to install onto your computer. And we're going to copy them from the download area into the C Windows policy definitions area of your Windows AD computer. And we're just going to install those files here. And then the final piece is the language folder. So for folks here, this is the English version, but Google has, I think it's like 27 languages or 29 languages published for your Windows environment. And then you would paste the appropriate language file into your language folder on your Windows computer. And then I think I'm also demoing here just how to run the PowerShell script. So the beauty of PowerShell here is this will download the latest, greatest templates and then install them into your policy definitions folder versus you manually downloading them, installing them, and then potentially repeating this process later as Google develops new policies. And so you can see this kind of just does all that work for you. It'll download the files and install them. So the next thing is I'm going to head over into the Microsoft Management Console and actually demonstrate where we actually can configure these policies for the Google updates to enable auto updates and some of the other policies. So under Computer Configuration, under administrative templates in Google is an area for Google Updates. And we're going to talk about the preferences area first. And there's essentially 3 policies in here. One is the time period you can set for how often you want your auto updates to occur. So in a lot of enterprises, this is usually a 12 or a 24-hour period. If you have proxy servers and you want to help enable the network team and reduce internet bandwidth, there's a setting for HTTP. And then also, there's a time period that you can set to disable updates if you don't want them to update during 9 to 5. And so what I'm showing you here is for each release of Chrome, for beta, stable, and dev, and Canary as well, you can set the auto update policy and pin it to a version. So if you're setting auto update, you just leave it enabled. By default, it's already enabled, and you're good to go. If you want it to pin, that's where you can specify a version of what version of Chrome you want your environment to stay on. And so our next video is just showing it being applied to a client. So for our folks that are aware of how group policy works, right, is your users log in and log out of their computers or reboot, they'll automatically get this policy. But as an IT administrator, if you kind of want to kick the tires there, you can do a GP update/force. And those GPO policies applied to your computer will get set and affect the registry. And you can see in the policies Google, there's an update area, and this sets the update check period, and that enables the auto updates there for the version of Chrome. And that's how you keep your Windows clients up to date, guys. Let's see, next slide. There we go. And so you did, in that one policy, I know it was quick, I mentioned that there's a download URL cache setting. So for folks that have web cache proxies in their environment and want to help reduce internet bandwidth, for their network teams that have internet proxy, they can enable that setting. And it's no guarantee, but ideally all your Chrome clients will hit an HTTP server that could be cached by your web proxy, and then your clients will go and get the cache from that, or go get the download from the cache server versus going back out to the internet each time. Saves bandwidth. I have here too, and we've worked with a lot of them, but including Bluecoat, Netscaler, Symantec, Squid, but many of the web proxy caches out there that you folks most likely have in your enterprise can do this. And this is my favorite part of the talk now, guys, is kind of talking about the shift of how updates impact us at a business level, right? So on one hand, we have security and IT and ourselves wanting the maximum return, maximum security, maximum user experience. And at the same time, the business doesn't want a lot of change and they want minimal impact. And so, you know, how do auto updates meet the support model of your business, right? It does take time to test these updates and to work with your change management and release management folks on communication. When should the auto updates happen? How high of a control do you want to have in your organization managing these updates? And what is the business impact, right, to security threshold as an organization you're comfortable with? And this is something I've charted and I've talked about previous organizations I've worked at with a lot of customers, is a lot of times IT is held responsible for managing updates, whether it's device, OS, applications, Chrome, and the IT teams are blamed if an update breaks something, and not so much the application owner. And I encourage you to involve your application owners, your business users, your change management, QA folks in this release cycle of Chrome and how you release it to your organization, and help shift that responsibility from IT into the business. And even if it's just one app, and I'm sure all of our organizations, they test some important app that's critical to the business, but is Chrome included in that test, right? Are they just really testing in their app and not seeing how Chrome and Chrome security affect their app and changes in user experience? So there's a big shift here, and I think this is what we're seeing in a lot of companies is becoming an IT-centric model. And that includes, you know, getting your business and your stakeholders and your app owners involved in the testing of Chrome and making them part of the beta channel as well. So there's a life cycle here, and that's kind of what I'm alluding to, is that get your business users, get them on beta channel, get your app owners on beta channel. As a SaaS comes into your organization or a new Google Cloud product, put those owners onto beta as well, and provide them mechanisms to give feedback to IT. And then as IT, you can work with Google and put in support tickets as well to get ahead of issues that you may see in Chrome. And then Chrome stable for our majority of users, keep latest, greatest up to date. And then finally, at Google, we call it pinned, but it's just disabling auto updates, right? Sticking to a certain version of Chrome, whether it's for user experience, application compatibility, and other pieces why you may not want to auto update a certain user segment or application type. So let's talk a little bit about getting Chrome out into your environment. So I saw lots of hands being raised for folks that already have Chrome in their environment, but let's say we didn't have Chrome environment in our environment, and what's the approach we would take to do this? So first initially is doing that initial discovery. I think in IT, like Chrome naturally finds its way onto computers, even if IT isn't aware, whether it's the help desk installing it or application owner says, oh, well, our app works better in Chrome. Chrome makes its way into that environment, and doing that initial discovery of who's using Chrome, what applications are using Chrome in our environment, what applications can't use Chrome in our environment. The next is building your Chrome packages. So I showed the Chrome Enterprise website. You can download the Chrome bundle, which includes all the MSI executables, or the 64-bit and the 32-bit versions, and building those packages so you can deploy them out to your user computers. Installing your pilot users. So with any big software push, you probably want to start at a smaller scale and get feedback from your team about what is working well and what isn't, what apps work well, and doing that feedback process. So then installing Chrome out on production, and just like we discussed, going through and installing those Google update policies and setting your update policy ahead of time, so when Chrome's being pushed to production, you're already set for that, and then doing the updates and maintenance cycle. So I have another slide here that's very similar. So if you're a company that's able to stay on auto updates, you can really just stick with feedback and updates and maintenance, right? Is staying ahead and keeping your users on beta. You can get that early feedback, knowing what things may or may not impact your environment as Chrome changes and your applications, and then choosing how to keep on those updates, pausing updates, and just going for auto updates. What can be difficult is you decide not to auto update, and you turn off auto updates for a period of versions of Chrome. What I find happens is because Google does make changes so quickly, and we're ahead of in the forefront in the browser technology, is an organization, if you get 3 versions behind, you end up going through almost this whole process again, because you only had 1 or 2 applications impacted, and that's why you stopped auto updates originally. But if you've been to some of the other talks about security and semantic being deprecated and other protocols that Chrome is working on saying they're not secure, you now have more applications that are falling into that, oh, Chrome updates will affect that. So as hard as it becomes interweaving and knowing all those applications as the IT administrator in your company, is when you fall out of these update cycles, it's kind of the pushback to the business. This is now harder for us to get back onto auto updates because we fell off the track and we now have to catch up. So that's really, again, a push, guys, is to go back and integrate those release cycles into your own release cycles, and so you can remain on auto updates. So, and this is where save on those update cycles. That's, I'd say, another beauty of Chrome updates. It updates off the internet, or like you saw, you can enable your proxy. And as IT admins, if it's on and everything, the majority of your company is auto updating, as an IT organization and admins, you don't have to worry about that level of work. It auto updates on its 6-week cycle. It gets minor updates in between, and you're not on a other cadence of how updates are delivered in your environment. It's really, I know as owners of apps, you just start through attrition, have so many apps that have to be updated, and these cycles become longer and require more resources of IT when there's less IT resources to do them. And so finally is if you can't remain on those updates, is that pinned approach, right, is maybe just trying to keep that small portion of your business on that version where they can't move, and not perpetuating that through your entire enterprise. So some notes on the GPO updates. So you saw that we installed the GPOs. The GPOs themselves, though, are not auto-updated. So, right, I copied those files manually, or I ran that script. So as Google does come out with new enterprise policies and new policies for Google updates, you do have to go back out and refetch those policies and apply them to your Active Directory computer. You can use the script that I showed you, and that kind of helps automate it so you don't have to do it as often. But do keep that in mind, that the GPOs themselves don't auto-update. So as Chrome releases new policies, even though your client computers receive the new policies, unless you've downloaded those policy templates to your AD computer, you may, as an administrator, not have that button available to affect that policy. And the next I'll mention is Legacy Browser. I'll kind of introduce Legacy Browser for folks that don't know what it is. But for some of the folks in the audience that raise their hand that Chrome is their default, hopefully they're not using IE. But for folks that want to get there, but they still have needs of IE and some other legacy browsers for application compatibility, Google has legacy browser support, and this is an additional MSI and an extension that you install into Chrome and is set through policy, through group policy, that allows you to control which websites and, or really control the user experience of which sites go into IE. So let's say you have a legacy ERP system, you can add that site into the policy, and then your folks are using Chrome for a majority of all their needs, but when they hit the ERP URL, it'll switch them over into IE, and you can also set it so it'll force them from IE back into Chrome. Now that being said, legacy browser support and these pieces are not included in part of Google updates, or part of Chrome updates. You do have to go and fetch the new legacy browser support and templates and also apply those as well. So if you're a company that does do legacy browser support, keep that in mind that you'll want to check back. Now the cycles are not coordinated with Chrome, so just keep that in mind that you may have to go out and download the legacy browser support packages and reapply that if you're looking for new features with legacy browser. So third-party extensions. So for a lot of folks already using Chrome, you're familiar with the Chrome Web Store and Chrome Apps and Chrome Extensions. Chrome apps and extensions through the web store are managed through the developer, the community that has published that extension. So as long as an organization, you're getting the extension through the Chrome Web Store, you're going to remain on the latest, greatest version of that extension by default, as long as the publisher is out there publishing the new version of that. I will keep in mind, too, as enterprises, sometimes the organizations that publish extensions may change the name of an extension. So as an administrator, you may want to occasionally go out and just validate that the extension that you've been using for a year is still the same extension. Most of the time it is, but things can change. There has been a lot of enhancements in the Chrome extension management that now let you get more granular with how you want to manage extensions. So there's 3 policies in Chrome. One is for force installing extensions, one is for whitelisting, and one is for blacklisting extensions. There's a new extension permission called extension permissions, and you build, this policy is a little more complex. You build a JSON structure that allows you to define your policy. Now, one of the popular features is blocking permissions, but what I want to call out here, since we're talking about updates, is setting minimum versions for your Chrome apps and extensions. So as an administrator, you can define if an app extension is allowed or denied in your environment, and using this new policy, you can also define if a minimum version is required of that extension. So if, let's say you're using an enterprise extension by a big enterprise security company, and your security team wants to make sure, hey, we're on that new version and our computers need to have that version, you can implement this policy, and it'll make sure that if the computer doesn't have that current version, we'll go out and get it. And if they don't have that version or can't get it, then they won't be able to run that extension. So I'm going to start wrapping up here, guys, about how to help determine what is your best update strategy. So there's a lot of things to consider determining your update strategy. It's really the trade-off of the ability to, the security and the user experience and the ability to control that, and how quickly as an organization you're willing to change and potentially upgrade your applications to meet Google's security. As an enterprise consultant, I tend to see that security and some of the pushes is that's where a lot of the needs to have these auto updates turned on, but then balancing that with the application control as well, or how it affects the applications. So getting familiar with the Chrome cycles, like I talked about, the every 6-week cycles, and the beta channel is a great way of getting ahead of that and keeping your organization up to date with Chrome. Again, part of the shift from IT being responsible for that update, but IT now providing a channel, the beta channel, to their power users, to their app owners to test Chrome before IT is responsible for having to push out the update. There's a lot of opportunity to segment users as well as an organization. If they're a cloud worker using modern SaaS apps, you're staying on auto updates, you're keeping Chrome up to date. But if you have some legacy infrastructure in your environment and legacy applications, maybe you can try and segment off those users of just folks that we have to keep on a certain version of Chrome and not expand that out to the entire environment. And that kind of goes into that mixed approach that we talked about earlier. And finally, as administrators, really keeping up to date with some of the links that I provided there. The enterprise release notes, I can't tell you how great that is. We have over a year's worth of enterprise release notes, so you can go back to other versions of Chrome. And then it also talks about what's coming up next. So if you look in the version of 68's release notes, in fact, we'll probably be publishing 69 in a few weeks too ahead of time, you can see what's coming out. And as IT admins, you can see, oh, here's some security changes that may impact us, or here's a user experience change that will affect how Chrome looks. And keeping that up to date and then communicating that out to the help desk and the other IT support admins in your organization can keep Chrome up to date in your environment, because you don't need to pause because your team's already ahead of those changes and aware of those changes. So I'm going to leave you guys with some links and some next step. So chrome.com/enterprise. And we'll bring you to the enterprise site. We also offer Chrome Enterprise browser support. So this is 24/7 email, phone access to Google support for needs of your Chrome and Chrome browser. We have the Chrome browser specialist email there, and that will get a hold of folks on my team and other teams here that specialize in Chrome browser. And finally, the release notes, the Chrome policy, and the help center as well. I'll leave you guys too with, we have some more talks. There was a talk yesterday by another coworker, Emily, who talked about security and the changing security needs, making a safer web. And I'm sure it'll be recorded and you guys can check it out online, but I'd recommend checking that out. It talks about some of the security features going into Chrome and touches on how you get those through updates.